Welcome to Writing the Wrong Way, where we talk about how writing works, how writers work, and how the best writers risk being strange. So I'm talking today with GMB Chomichuk, my co-creator of the comic The Eye Collector, out with Heavy Metal, Virus Comics, and with Justin Currie, also known the world over as Chasing Artwork. And the two of them are also the creators of my favorite podcast, Super Pulp Science, and we're all involved together with some other artists and creators in a comics anthology called Dead Work. And right now, as we're talking and as you're listening to this, the Dead Work Anthology is being kickstarted, and we need your help kickstart it. It's in the final week. We need that push over that goal line. We need you and your friends to spread the word of Dead Work and check out this awesome comics anthology. So if you go to deadwork.ca, that will take you to the Kickstarter page, so you can check everything out. If you're listening to this in the future and it is there's robot cars flying through the air and the Dead Work Kickstarter has ended, then deadwork.ca will just take you to where you can get the actual book or find out some more about the group of artists here that we're calling ourselves the Dead Work Collective. But what I want to talk to you guys about today was not just what's the Dead Work Anthology and what why should people maybe kickstart it, but also just sort of what you think Kickstarter is there for, and like what value it kind of has maybe for artists and creators, because you guys are both full-time artist creators. You guys have done Kickstarters before, right? I'm talking to you on Zoom, and I see in the background Justin's Dragon Nanny poster on the wall, and Dragon Nanny of course was his own very successful Kickstarter. And so and I know just from talking to you guys that you've got other Kickstarter plans in progress. I'm curious to know, just for maybe creatives listening to this who are looking at Kickstarter or are looking at different ways of trying to get projects off the ground or get things funded. What do you think is sort of the ups and downs of Kickstarter?
Can I offer an operational definition at you there, Jonathan?
Maybe I should say crowdfunding rather than Kickstarter, but
that is what I was going to get at. It's sort of like saran wrap versus plastic wrap, Xerox versus photocopying, right? There are lots of different crowdfunding platforms, lots and more now because of the controversy with Kickstarter possibly switching over to the blockchain. So it is not one size fits all. It's not just Kickstarter is the only place that you can crowdfund stuff. There are lots of different places, and people should check out all those options because they're empowering, and there are lots of different creators who are seeking different crowdfunding platforms, almost the way that certain boutique publishing houses offer certain kinds of things to certain kinds of clientele. That is kind of where the crowdfunding space has started to go. A thing to consider is that crowdfunding was the largest publisher of comics and graphic novels in the last 2 years. Bigger than Marvel or DC for the dollar value spent. Maybe not for the individual products, which is a real important distinction, like for the sheer number of units. Because when you're talking about a living wage, you want to be paid the lion's share as the creator, not the mouse's share.
The mouse's share versus lion's share. I like that distinction. And but yeah, I should clarify. I really am wondering more about crowdfunding and kind of how I know that you guys have both had longer careers at this point, right? Like you've been doing it for a while. You've been doing it independently, although you've had worked with larger companies as well.
It sounds like an accusation when you say that.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm the old punk guy, right? Like I come from like the punk background, and what I would do is back in the day, when I was young and impressionable, and I would go to punk shows, right? And I would be like at the punk show, and I would be wearing like a button shirt and fucking, I'd have no hairstyle at all. I'd have no tattoos, no piercings. I'd wear like a button up shirt. And I'd be like, I'm the most punk guy here, because these fucking kids don't get it. They don't get, they're all wearing the same shit. They're all doing the same thing. And they're all like, they don't have their own, they don't know what the indie spirit really is. They're just kind of faking it till they make it. And that was a bit of an arrogant jerk thing, but that was the attitude I had. It was like, no, independence is about doing what you want to do in the way you want to do it. And what I think is interesting about crowdfunding, like a lot of things in the last while, we've seen this kind of trend. I was listening to these old recordings I made when I was younger and interviewing artists for like magazines. I interviewed Matthew Sweet and Frank Black. And they had both at the time just put out their first indie records. And they were both like, so I'm literally like calling them in their house, talking to them. I was talking to Matthew Sweet as he got a delivery at his house. And there's like 3 minutes where I had to like make sure I locked the recording down a little bit, because he gave his home address. I'm calling his phone number. And he's like giving his home address to the guy, filling out a form. And so I'm like, well, I can't air this. But like, it was interesting because they were kind of talking about a lot of these things that then started to happen, which was these different trends towards the ability for an independent artist to actually have a real business model that wasn't going to get stamped and crushed by these larger industry players. And we've seen versions of that working and versions of it not working. But I'm curious to know, like, how you've kind of have. I know for both of you, although you've been doing this a while in different forms, by this point, you're both full-time, and you've also have more recently, like it's kind of a newer thing to be moving into crowdfunding. So I'm curious to know like how you feel it fits into your sort of artist businesses, for lack of a better way to put it, or even just your kind of artistic, bent.
I'm going to set you up a softball, Justin, and I'll let you knock it out of the park. Wouldn't it be true, Justin, that the convention circuit was and is crowdfunding, just not digital? We've been doing crowdfunding for 10 years before we started doing it digitally.
But yeah, so here's the big difference is crowdfunding is a pre-order system. It's basically a transparent store for pre-orders. I'm making a book. It's almost done. I put together a trailer of it, enough work to make you believe as the consumer that it's gonna happen. I'm gonna finish it, and then you can pre-order. And what's great about Kickstarter versus like a convention is I can advertise my next book. Let's say it's Dragon Nanny 2. I can advertise Dragon Nanny 2 at conventions for an entire year, and people can be excited about it, but I won't necessarily get pre-orders. They'll just buy it at the show when it's ready. But on Kickstarter, you get those pre-orders, and you might get enough that you in fact get more than your budget. And now you get to unlock all these extra little things. That was the big appeal to Kickstarter for me, is I might not just get my goal, but I might get X amount more than my goal. So now I can upgrade my cover. Okay, now I got more. So now I can add more pages. Okay, now I got more. So now, I can make the book even more special. And that all those cool upgrades were not available in my previous model of making books. And that's what I always thought was the coolest thing about Kickstarter is your project might become 10 times cooler than if you did it just by yourself, not knowing what those sales numbers are going to be.
Now that you kind of get into a thing that is specific to crowdfunding platforms, which is, or a specific way of approaching crowdfunding platforms, right? So I don't know if you're really, like, you're talking about, here's a project that is basically done, but right, there's these material costs to realize it physically. So this is what we're doing with the Dead Work Anthology, right? Like all those comics are done. We've designed the file. We just have to hit print on the file kind of thing. After we add like the list of people who funded it, it's basically, it's all ready to go. But that's not how you have to use crowdfunding platforms. And we've seen people do that, right? We've seen people do like, oh, I've got this idea, right?
Yeah.
And they don't really necessarily have a whole lot. It doesn't seem to be as common, but I'm just saying like,
that used to be how crowdfunding worked. I have an idea. Do you like my idea? If you give me money, I'll do my idea. And like anyone.
How often did it happen?
People with ideas don't do anything. What the Kickstarter community or the crowdfunding community, people who are used to pre-ordering products through Kickstarter, through crowdfunding, through Indiegogo, through what is that one, Craze or whatever, the audience now has been trained a little bit to know what is a good bet, because you're betting a little bit, and you got to bet on the jockey, not the horse, right? And so you should look to people who have the project in hand, and you're just going to pre-order it. The reason they're doing it that way and not like releasing it through a regular publisher is so that the majority of the monetary involvement for their labor is theirs, as it should be. And that's why they're putting it on Kickstarter. They've already done the work. They've done the sweat equity. It's there on the table. They've sent you a picture. They can show you the insides. That's how Justin does it. That's how I try to do it. That is how Dead Work was done. We're not selling a promise. We're selling a product. And we're doing our pre-orders through crowdfunding.
It's not to say, though, that there aren't like straight up scams that have been run through Kickstarter. A lot of products, like there was one where it changes like the pH balance of your laundry water. And this was a product, this was a scam product that had been like, it was like an infomercial leftover scam. And then they came to Kickstarter with it and got huge amounts of funding, huge amounts of order. And of course, like the product is, it's snake oil. It doesn't do what it says it's going to do. It's a scam.
Just some powder you throw in your laundry.
They had one with like,
no, it was like a little ball. It was like a physical thing that you're supposed to put in there, and it'll magically make your normal water clean. Like it'll clean your laundry without any detergent, anything, right? It was
because the water is doing it.
Right.
Right. Because you don't need detergent, but that's actually kind of genius. I wish I was a private investor in that company. Forget about Kickstarter.
But that makes me sad, and maybe like I'm just a little. I pay attention to that stuff a bit more. But do you guys think the trust in platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and GoFundMe does it get tarnished over time and they die and new ones pop up?
I mean, I think,
and where are we?
I think what you've seen more and more recently is those things get found out and shut down by Kickstarter. But I think at the same time, so I don't think it happens as much. I think it's less prevalent because it's more competitive. There's more people and there's more money in that space. So like Gregory was saying, on one hand, there's just less people able to fund things that aren't properly realized or further along the path. People just won't fund it. But the other side of it, I think, is Kickstarter will shut down the scams faster. They'll find them. Like Nintendo shut down one a little while ago. This video game was shut down that didn't have these licensing rights it had a little while ago. But I think at the same time, what you're saying is true. Like because of the competition in the space, any single platform like Kickstarter is, just starting to lose market share to other things.
It's what happened with Netflix, right? Netflix used to be the only streaming game in town. Now everyone figured out that works.
I don't know if it's a matter of people losing trust in it, though. I think it's just a matter of like, you get other options that are maybe better for people. Like maybe their country has Kickstarter sucks in their country, but Indiegogo is good in their country or whatever. Or there's some specific one or whatever.
Yeah, just off the top, there's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Crowd Supply, Experiment, Chuffed, Patreon, Fundable, WeFunder, Seed Invest, Fundly, Lending Club. Like it goes on and on. There are 100 you can look up right now.
Yeah, so I think you get there's a good and bad side of that competition, right? One thing is certainly that they start to lose the market share no matter what they do.
Well, what happens is there's always a first mover who trains people on what the technology is. Doesn't matter what it is. The first guy who sold a pencil, people are like, what the hell is this? Get out of my face, man. Right. But then when people saw it working, they're like, hey, these pencils, this is a great idea. Anyone can do this. Right. And that's what's happened in the crowdfunding space, is that you just need enough money and venture capital to back a website that handles transactions, because you're not actually fulfilling anything as a crowdfunder. You're just taking people's money.
Yeah, there's a great South Park episode about Kickstarter, which is, I mean, I like Kickstarter, don't get me wrong, but it is almost 100% accurate, the South Park take on Kickstarter. Is Cartman basically creates Go Fund Yourself, which is where a company that does nothing and just collects money from other people's ideas. Right.
Now, so all of those things, again, come down to what I said before, right? You're betting on the jockey and not the horse. You want to, if you're going through those platforms, it's very easy to do your due diligence. Someone says, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I make such and such, and I've done it before, and I want to do it again. Well, you just go in and check and see if they've done it before. And particularly with books or graphic novels, the ISBN number proves beyond a shadow of a doubt whether that product has ever existed or will ever exist. Right. So that's the great thing about comics, about graphic novels, about books in general on Kickstarter. There's some just luscious, incredible archive art collections and original art collections, just some great things going on there. Is that unlike the tech side of those companies, right, where people are like, I'm going to make an electric shaver that crawls out of, out from under your bed onto your face and shaves you, so when you wake up in the morning, you'll be great. And
it's like a Roomba for your face.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Right? The book is a thing that people understand. You can show that it's real. You can see it. You know what you're getting. The audience is trained to understand what a book is. We don't have to convince people what a book is anymore. The same is true of pencils, and the same is now true of crowdfunding. Millions of people now understand what is meant by crowdfunding. And so the barrier is not making the audience understand what the hell you're talking about. It's just getting the product to them in a way that makes sense to them.
Well, so here's the other thing too that I think is not like the easiest thing to hear for people who are maybe starting out on Kickstarter, is there is a bit of a community on Kickstarter, but really the majority of your backers, of the people who are going to be buying your product, are people that you brought to your Kickstarter page, that know you already, that have been following you on Facebook and Instagram, or on your newsletter list or stuff like that. That was something I was really shocked about with Dragon Nanny. I thought, okay, I'm on Kickstarter, I'm going to have all these new customers find me through Kickstarter. And that did happen, but it was a very small slice of the pie. And even now with Dead Work, like we got the award Projects We Love, which means Kickstarter basically boosts our Kickstarter to like the front of the page, and it promotes it a lot more. And I thought, okay, well, now that Kickstarter community is going to rain dollars upon us. And still not the case. It's still our social media groups and our newsletters and our fans that are coming to Kickstarter to buy the thing. It's the community is not going to do the heavy lifting for you. It's still on you to get people to go to that page.
Well, it's still true that, as much as the technology changes, it's weird because I've been, over the last, last 5 to 10 years, I've been getting deeper and deeper into marketing and getting, I do a lot of freelance work as a kind of marketing adjacent, work, if that, and so on. And it's funny, but like it still boils down to word of mouth.
Jonathan, I would describe it with you as a troubleshooter. You sort of find
in some
troubles
ways,
and then
I'm like sort of, but like a lot of it's marketing or consultancy, or I just do writing for it. But like, it's still weirdly true that what works is word of mouth and sales letters. It's so weird, but like it's still like you going to get the biggest bump online from sending an email to somebody, to like your leads on your email list, or better yet, you're listening to this podcast, you tell your friend about the Dead Work Anthology. That's still like the thing. And it, as Justin says, it's very fan driven in that respect. It's people who already know that they can trust you and they like your stuff and they want, because it's good, to spread the word. You know, this is a really hard thing. I know you guys know it, but this is a really hard thing I find for younger artists, or more newer, I should say, whether they're old or young, younger, like newer writers or newer artists. It's really difficult for them to understand that there isn't a magic formula. It's about, you know, they have to do good work and put it in front of people, and then those people will drive its success or failure. And it's not about a magic marketing bullet. Like there's a saying in advertising that great marketing makes a bad product fail faster. It doesn't turn it into a good product, and it doesn't make it succeed.
Yeah, absolutely true. And it depends on what it is you're after. You know, people are trying to, everyone wants their golden ticket, but not realizing that it's just a lottery, and the chance of winning the lottery is, you know, almost zero.
But the more, you know, tickets you have in there, like, right, the more books you put out, the more whatever, the you know, you can kind of suss the numbers a bit, or juice the numbers a bit, but it is really, what are you going to do? Like, you can't control those crazy, that side of it.
I think you have to slice it kind of fine. You have to ask yourself, okay, am I a creative person? Well, yes. Do I want to express myself? Yes. Do I want to write a book? Yes. Do I want to run it as a business? No. Well, then keep your job.
Yeah.
You don't have to quit your job to write books or make things. You can just make as many as you can make while also having a job. And
just because you're running it as business, you don't have to do something you don't like, unartistic.
That's right. Absolutely true. You don't have to do it just for the money. You can do other things just for the money and not do your art just for the money, and you'll find yourself much happier. One of the things I say a lot on our podcast, and one of the things that I'm always aiming at, is the idea of the living wage, right? Mm-hmm. You've said before, so I'll paraphrase you, that it's easy to make almost no money in the arts or a lot of money in the arts, but it's almost impossible to make a normal amount of money in the arts.
Right.
And my entire sort of life energy in the last 10 years has been pointed at making a normal amount of money in the arts, a living wage. And I want to define that a little bit here. So when I say a living wage, I mean a normal amount of money. What does normal mean? Normal is that you can, the things you want, you can have, right? Well, the things you want are based on your values, and your values are based on whether or not you think the world owes you anything. And so you have to ask yourself this at the beginning level: what do you think the world owes you for your genius? And if the answer is zero, you will not, right, get all high and mighty on the idea of the winning lottery ticket. Instead, you'll say, I'm going to work hard every day, just like everyone else works hard every day. And what I will get from it is a normal amount of money, right? Which is different for every person, what they think normal is. I am the happiest I have ever been, right? There has been times in my life where I've made vastly more money, but I have created the days I want every day right now. And those are the days I'm living. And my wife and I are happy, and my kids and I are happy, and we have the things we want and need. So everything else is actually useless. Right?
The best book marketer in the world is a guy named Tim Grahl. And what Tim Grahl was asked once, what is the thing that separates a truly successful, like, best-selling author from, you know, someone who isn't successful in selling books? Like, what's the quality or the thing that they have that, you know, these other people don't? And he had to really rack his brains to think of it. He tells a story of like how, like, he was asked this at a panel. He was asked this at a panel, and he kind of fumbled through an answer, but then he thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, because he could, every time he had an example, he could think of somebody who didn't have that. It's like, well, you know, they work in this genre, oh, but there's another person. And anyway, what he eventually realized was the way is that the truly successful author believes that you should buy their book. They have this belief that it would be better for you to own their book and to buy it than to not own their book and buy it. And therefore, they don't shy away from trying to from telling you you should buy their book. Whereas these other authors who don't have that, they have an embarrassment about the book, or they have some sort of hesitancy about offering it for sale or something like. But they just don't truly, they can't get behind it because they just don't believe in their heart that you should buy the book. And if they don't believe it, then why should you?
Yeah,
Immediately thought Bible salesman, because he believes that you need that book.
I mean, maybe they're wrong.
And
they've had
a pretty successful model,
They've sold a lot of Bibles.
It's word of mouth, yeah.
Right. I'll offer another layer to that. It's not just that you want people to buy your book, because the book's just, if you made a book, theoretically you're proud of it, and you might be nervous, so you could find a marketer to do that. The real difference between people who have best-selling books and people who don't is chance.
Sure. I think that comes into play for sure.
The market, which is made up of millions of human beings with their own idiosyncratic beliefs and behaviors, sometimes latch onto things that are popular but not good, 50 Shades of Grey, right? Or good but not popular, Hellboy, right? And it just depends on whether or not chance occurs to you. So it is that lottery ticket. So you shouldn't be holding out for the lottery. You can buy a ticket, I guess, by making a book. But if you just want to try to win the lottery, buy a lottery ticket. It costs you $1 and you don't have to write a book for a year.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. If it's just about winning the lottery.
Right. But if you're trying to say something of yourself and leave it behind because your life will eventually run out and you want to have left some kind of mark, be it ugly or beautiful, then that's the reason to do it. What happens to it after is a byproduct of having created the thing. Justin is a great example. I'll speak about you, Justin, and then you can defend yourself or you can call bullshit. He works every day on making art, and then there's a pile of art around him, and then he goes, okay, well, I have all this shit. I guess I should build a website to sell it. I guess I should take it to shows. I guess I should do all this because I sure loved making it. But if I'm going to make more, I've got to put this art somewhere. You got to clear the deck before you can sail again.
Yeah, you have to launch that product. You're right. Yeah, you have to send it out into the universe. I heard there was a great, I don't know where I read it or heard it, but a book is like a boxer. And when you're making the book, it's like when you're doing the training in the gym. It's a training montage. You're doing the fundamentals and the basics and the combos and stuff. But once that book is out into the world, it's that fighter is in the ring on the fight. You can no longer, as the coach or as the maker, you no longer can control what happens after that. It's now up to the universe whether or not that boxer succeeds or that book succeeds. And I really like that I'm in here training montage, and hopefully, I've got a Rocky on my hands or a Bible.
Yeah, I mean, you can market it in the sense, but like there's this level at which your marketing is just trying to get people to give it a go, and then it'll determine its quality, or some ineffable aspect of it will determine whether it succeeds over time.
Now we're caught up. I don't really like using it, but since we've brought up the Bible twice, or maybe 3 times now, what you're talking about, Jonathan, are the evangelists. Once it exists, exactly. There'll be someone standing on a street corner saying, as it is written in the book of Harriet, you must come before me. These people, right, are willing to shout about it to strangers, right?
That's because something in there speaks to them. So yeah. what Grawl says, like, again, just to invoke that marketer again for a second, his like rule of it is like, you need to get his sort of again, he's talking books. So his thing is like, you need to market and you need to believe in this thing, or don't do it, right? Do something else you believe in. But once you've done it and you truly believe in it, you need to like get out there and like kind of beat the street and get people to read it. Because what you want, his point of view is like, what you want is you want about 10,000 people to read this thing. If you can get about 10,000 people to read this thing, then word of mouth will take over and you don't have to market it anymore.
What's kind of tough about that statement though is as we all know, while making a
Oh,
book,
it's tough.
you are gonna fall in and out of love with that book over and over and over again. You're gonna doubt yourself the whole time. You believe in it the most at the very beginning when no work has been done yet. That's when you think it's the best thing in the world.
And that's
And
when
then
everyone
as
wants to
soon as you
kickstart
get
their
into it-
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right?
What a Kickstarter.
They're like, oh, I got $1 million idea right here.
But by the end, that imposter syndrome and those doubts and like, is this great? Isn't it? I don't know. I've been looking at this thing for the last, however many months or weeks or even years. You're full of a lot of doubt. So it's hard, especially like artists who are usually a little more introverted to begin with, to then, tout this as the next big thing when they're so full of, did I do a good job or didn't I?
See, I think you put it perfectly, Justin. But I would add, but so what? That's accurate, but that's just the
Double
fucking
down?
state of the world.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, we all doubt everything all the time, right? But if
But
you
you're
can
right.
imagine the bad version, you can imagine the good one too.
But his point is like what separates the successful person from the unsuccessful person, partially it's luck, of course, Gregory, but is like they're willing to do it anyway, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
Like you're willing, Justin, despite like maybe feeling like an imposter sometimes, you'll go out there and, stand at the booth.
Is that why it's good to have a marketing, like other people involved with the project? They can be your hype men. They can be your marketing team. They can be the ones shouting it from the rooftop. So it's not just on you, because sometimes that comes off as like a little, it can come off as arrogant or like this guy thinks he's the greatest, but like, yeah, like.
But it only comes
Again,
off that way
a
if
lot
you're
of
not the
doubt.
greatest, Justin.
Right.
Right? Because once they see like your Gundam, they're like, oh, fuck, this guy is the greatest. You know what I mean? Like if you were drawing stick figures like what I draw, and if I was trying to get you to buy my Gundam, then I would be arrogant. You're just confident.
Cyanide and Happiness think they're the great, and they kind of like Cyanide and Happiness made that work, right? They do.
Yeah,
stick
shitty
figures, and they
drawings.
are like
You can make shitty drawings
monumental.
work, but that's
But
not
you
your
know
job.
what's underneath it is razor sharp wit. If you have razor sharp wit under your
Yeah, they're not
shitty
trying to tell you
drawing,
it's well drawn.
yeah, that's right. Then you can, that's the thing. And that with comics, now it comes right back around to the idea of comics. Comics are words and pictures. So if and art is not the same for everyone, does not have the same value for everyone, does not have the same emotional connection for everyone. Neither do words. But when you put the two together, you're playing with 3 lottery tickets. Someone might like the writing, someone might like the pictures, someone might like the space between that is created, the new idea that is created when the word and picture are together. A spark happens in their imagination that they would not have otherwise had if they were separate. And so that's where, and even me, I'm in my own hype land now, because this is what Justin's talking about. When you're talking about the creative process, you get excited at the possibility of what can come next because you are discovering it along the way. Think of the pages that you and I have worked on, Justin, or you and I have worked on, Jonathan, that are so much better than anything we imagined. But first we had to believe in our starting point so much that we got excited to start.
Right.
And then only when we put our powers together, by our powers combined, something special happened.
It's the honeymoon stage of the project.
Yeah, you need to fall in love a little. You need to have candlelit dinners, moonlit walks on the beach, right? A passionate
and then comes
night
the couples
creativity.
therapy.
That's right. So that you can survive couples therapy, which is the making of the book. That's right.
You got to
You
think
have to have
back to
that
those better
foundation.
times. Yeah.
Right. Remember when I was so excited in the beginning?
Well, we
Like,
did
I
that
gotta
with
recapture
Dragon
that
Lady. How
spark,
many times did we come back to the beginning and say, okay, well, we're going to rewrite the whole thing. But what we didn't throw out was how excited we were by the concept, right? So we kept working on the relationship.
I'll tell people to literally this is why I really encourage writers to make outlines, but I'll also tell them at the start of the outline, write down before you write anything else, why you want to write this book. Why does it matter? And it's got to be a real significant reason. People will say things like, well, I want to, well, I want to tell a story about a zombie. It's but why do you need to tell this story about a zombie? Because it's not enough. Because the second that you don't like the zombie anymore, you don't need to tell the story.
Yeah, and I always say that introspection should be your reason for writing or creating. You should be doing some self-archaeology so that you have a reason to show up every day. It doesn't matter if you're writing a story, you know, like Backbone of Night will be out soon, and it is a story about a father and son navigating a robot apocalypse. There is so many near murder scenes. Is that it's the genre is making the form, and so I am pushing the form. But the reason to show up at the desk is to say, what is my relationship with my own father? What is my relationship with my own kids? What is the indelible fact that parents die due to a relationship if parents and children accept it early on? What does that do, right? And then I can go and I can think about those things while I'm writing about the story, and that if the book is not a success, if people don't like it, if they don't like how I wrote action, if they don't like how I drew a robot, it doesn't matter, because what I needed to get from it, I got. And because
Actually,
the working model is making a normal amount of money, not everyone has to buy a copy.
I found a way to bring this back to Kickstarter. Everything you're talking about, Gregor, like all the elements of that project that you really love and that you want to highlight. Kickstarter has been kind of great for me with my new book, because I get to, in the campaign of the Kickstarter, I get to highlight all those great little elements that I love about the project. And if I was just launching this at a Comic-Con, people couldn't read about how the Iron Giant in Final Fantasy VII inspired this story, and how the earlier version looked like this, and how like here are some, like all these, you get to write like a huge news article on how the project started, why you love it, all the reasons you love it, all the comparable titles. Like you get to put together this amazing press release that people scroll through before they decide if they want to read it or not. And in the real world, you might have all that stuff in the back of the book. You might be able to like get them with like, you know, 1 or 2 Facebook posts or something like that. But you get to distill all that great energy into the campaign. And so I've been, while I'm working on my new book, I'm also chipping away at the Kickstarter, and like all those things that you just said, I'm making writing little articles about that to have in the campaign to get people really, really excited about a book that doesn't quite exist yet. And that's what, like, another aspect I've really liked about this whole kickstarting a book process, all the behind the scenes.
What I like about what you're saying there is I really believe that people do everything like they do small things. And for the dear listener who doesn't know Justin, he works in Vector. He's basically forced a program to output art it was never designed to create, and it does it flawlessly and beautifully, right? And here you are talking about Kickstarter. It's designed to do a certain kind of thing, and you're saying, okay, but if I put this and this and this in here too, it will produce a different effect than people are used to seeing there, which is the story of creation. You know, come to your boxing analogy. It's the tail of the tape. You're putting it on there right up front, right?
People get to watch the training montage. That's
right. You get to watch the training montage, which is honestly, I would like to now, with this in mind, go back and scroll through all my favorite crowdfunding campaigns and see which ones connected with me based on the fact that there was a tail of the tape versus here's just the product. Right.
Well, let's just kind of bring this back to the Dead Work book as a sort of way to kind of connect all these dots, but also maybe kind of wind down a little bit here. So what is it for you guys that is that thing for Dead Lyric? What's the big why? You know, why you want to be involved in this project, why you think it's so cool, why somebody should go to deadwork.ca and, you know, throw their hat into the ring and help it become a reality.
Because people working together to make art is amazing. It's like a rare and precious jewel in this just so heavily saturated, gig focused, money obsessed, crypto bro world, that just some people getting together to express a story, which is only promising you one thing. It's going to take you to another universe for a short time, and it will deliver on that promise. no matter whether you liked it or you didn't like it, you're going to go somewhere else. And I think that that is the beauty of books as a product, is that they'll always deliver on the promise of taking you somewhere else.
When I think of Dead Work, what got me excited is it's kind of like, you know, there was a warehouse fire and all these film canisters that were going to be recycled or that were never going to be seen by people were dredged up and made into an anthology, you know, creature feature, which you now get to see. And nobody's seen them before. They weren't going to be ever shown, but now we've stitched them all together and have this great new unique thing all by itself from the ashes of all these other projects. Because honestly, like where, you know, my contribution came from was a story that was, you know, not really seen and wasn't going to go anywhere, and it couldn't go anywhere by itself. But now, because it found a place with all these other great little stories, what do you call it? A charcuterie board of horror and sci-fi and
or a haunted mixtape. But I like your
Haunted
Or
mixtape.
warehouse
Frankenstein
fire
monster of
analogy.
stitching
Yeah.
together, you know, the
yeah.
pieces to make this
Yeah.
brute
Because-
force that's going to take over the comics industry in Canada.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so what is the book actually?
To me,
Right?
it's a little mini movement of like these people who have been kind of working together and these different ways, but until you kind of really start to gather it, you don't really see the momentum that maybe, you know, I'm hoping this group has, and how, you know, it's you know, there's just, I feel like we're, you know, maybe the elder statesman of the project in the sense that, you know, Justin less so, but like in the sense that we're like older, and, you know, there's these younger dudes on our heels here, and, you know, I feel like they're coming up strong, you know, and I feel like
That's for
the
sure.
anthology is really showing like it's I feel like it's the early point in a kind of a momentum that's going to kind of, you know, make some big splashes here. And I think it'll be exciting for people to look back on this book on their shelves and think, oh, you know, that's Zach Schuster when he was just starting out with this thing, or that's, you know, the Laundryman's first story, you know,
Right.
et cetera.
And for the dear listener who still hasn't looked up deadworks.ca, it's 22. Dead Work is 22 weird comic stories in 144 pages. Some are little micro sparks and some are longer form storytelling, but it is just writers and artists doing their thing, like a channel changer is switching between imaginations through science fiction, horror, fantasy, comedy, horror. You know, it's awesome.
The other thing that got me really fired up the other day is in Manitoba right now, the event is dying down a bit, and we're starting to open up. Book launches are a thing again. So the idea that we all get together with the other Winnipeg creators in this project and maybe have a book launch for Dead Work at some point. Oh, so excited. It's been years since we've been able to launch a book.
I know.
In person,
Well, and it all
at
comes down again to
at a
why we
bookstore.
did it. It's a community of people trying to make something and come together in spite of the fact that we've all been separate, right? And that's sort of like the driving force underneath the project is the context of when it was created. It was hard for us to get together, but it wasn't hard for us to put our work all together. We have to be 6 feet distant, but our pages can be pressed together in that book. And so you get this, you know, the sense of the crowd, the sense of camaraderie that comes from all being in the same table of contents.
I couldn't have said it better. You know, thanks to the two of you for, you know, your thoughts, your kind of, you know, some of the advice I think that kind of is in there for, you know, creatives who are considering crowdfunding, and also, you know, words on the Dead Work project, Dead Work Anthology of Comics, deadwork.ca. All that great stuff Gregory was just talking about on display there. You can actually see some extra pages from this thing. And like Justin was saying, this thing's ready, is done. It's done, it's ready to go to print. What we're trying to crowdfund is the printing costs to get some physical copies to you and in your hot little hands, so you can be the first to have some of these great amazing little Frankenstein monsters. So check out deadwork.ca. Thanks to you, Gregory and Justin, and to everyone listening. Keep writing the wrong way.